And what is your best memory of a training officer? And from that memory, what was your takeaway and how do you apply it today?
After you, Bert.
Thanks, Jerry. Is the audio better now, Debbie?
Yes. Thanks.
Okay. I took off the earpieces. I'm just using the microphone in the
No, it's perfect.
in my new Mac. So there's two people I want to mention. One is Jimmy Panetta. He was the first firefighter that by accident taught me how to be the layout man at the Kent Land Volunteer Fire Department. It was just dumb luck. He walked in, said, "Hi, how are you? Did they show you anything?" I said, "No, I had no training. They just said, get on a fire truck." So he took me out into the apparatus bay in about 10 minutes, showed me how to be the layout man. And we went back and watched TV again. Well, 5 minutes later, I go to my first fire ever in my career. It's a working fire in my apartment complex. At that event, I did exactly what Jimmy said. I was successful. I successfully got the hose off the fire truck, told the fire truck to go. When the next firefighter arrived, I hit him in the head with a coupling and almost killed him. So at that incident, I learned how important my training was, that my training could not only save my life, I could be a danger to other people if I didn't know what I was doing. And I promised myself right there and then I would never not know what to do again. And that I could not rely completely on the institution to put it in me. I had to go find it. And it's been that way my entire career. And I think a lot of us in the fire service have that same situation. The institution only really gives us the minimum. If we want more, we have to go do it on our own. And everybody doesn't want to do that. You could look at the people on this call, they are different than the other people in their organization because they've got outside of their organization to take responsibility for their own training and development and their own professionalism. We have not achieved that level of professionalism yet as a discipline. From the first incident, that's why I learned that. Then the next person is Frank Branigan. You've all read Building Instructor of the Fire Service. But more than that, what Frank put in my head is that there's a difference between a discipline being based on science and research as opposed to experience and consensus. And the fire service, even to this day, is more based on experience and consensus. We are just getting into the whole science part of it. And until we as a discipline embrace science and research as the reason why we do everything, not because we've always done it that way, or not because the big city does it that way, or the UK does it that way, or New York City does it that way. You can't be a profession that way. Every firefighter does CPR the exact same way worldwide. Why is that? And we've all changed how we do it over the last 30 years. That's because when I am functioning as an EMT, I am part of the medical profession, part of the medical science and research, and it comes down to my behavior. The fire service doesn't have that infrastructure. We are way behind the 8 ball. And until we can make that transition, we will always be playing catch up. And the perfect example of that is Grenfell. If you have been watching how closely they are examining every decision made in that building before it caught on fire, and now they're getting into every decision that was made by everybody at that fire. Part of their training is what caused them to make that decision. Just recently, the most recent document that came out, I sent you a copy of it, Debbie. You should send that out to everybody on this call because I think that's a wake-up call for all of us. Could our training and our behavior stand up to a court of inquiry? And the answer most likely is no, because it's not based on science and research. And I'm not blaming anybody, but the call takers that answered 911 or 999 in Great Britain, they were trained to call people and to take calls from people in high-rise buildings. And the training used to be one whole day long. But then they saved money by cutting the training in half. And instead of actually letting call takers do role play and experience, they had them watch videos of other people doing it. So they never actually had to have the experience of talking to somebody. The other thing that's just mind-blowing is that the design was based on it would, and they'd only do 3 to 5 scenarios because they said there would never be more than 5 people calling if there was a high-rise fire wanting to have assistance. Well, when Grenfell took place, there were 120 people calling. So the entire foundation of that training that we put into that was one of the factors that led to all those fatalities. And the poor incident commanders, they were not prepared to say, we're going to do away with this stay put order and go to an evacuation order much earlier. The same thing happened in 9/11. Those buildings were supposed to stand for 3 hours. They stood for 100 minutes. So we are making decisions with very little science and research behind what we do. And that's been from my first fire until today. We have to make that transition if we want to be a real profession. And I know we spend so much time on EMS, but all the people with MD on their jackets are going to tell us how to do that. There's nobody telling us how to be firefighters. We get to make that up. That's not good enough. We need to have a different paradigm in the 21st century if we want to get close to all the challenges that society is creating for us. And, 20 years from now, some of these guys are going to be faced with some terrible, terrible disasters, whether it's Grenfell or Paradise, California, or the camps that are in somewhere in the third world countries, or a 25-story building made out of wood. These are going to be challenges that the people in the future will have to face, and I'm afraid we're not close enough to being able to handle those situations. We'll do the best we can, but we can always do better. That's my takeaway message from all my training. You can always do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. Just finishing up there, your talk just then really reminded me, and I'm going to paraphrase, and I think it was Sir Massey Shaw stated, if you have learned a skill from performing it out of necessity, you have in turn learnt it poorly. So if you just learn a skill by doing something and you don't do the study behind it, you have learnt it poorly because you've done it out of necessity. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for that. I'll be very quick, as I know I'm the last question today, and we've been going for quite some time. So my best memory from a training officer was a bloke. I've been so fortunate in my career. I have met so many people that have helped me along the way, including panelists on today's show. There was a couple there, and I thought about writing about one of those guys. But I decided to write about a dear friend of mine, Peter Egan. He was my on-station trainer after I finished recruits. Pete taught me all of my increments. That's what we call our appliance tickets, and helped me continue with all of my continuation training. And he spent a lot of time with me, worked out my learning style, and I consider him a friend and mentor today. It's hard to lock down one specific memory. I've fought my best fires with Pete. We always joke that we've always fought the best fires together. We've just had a really good career together. And some takeaways from Pete. So Pete's been in the fire service as long as I've been alive, so 33 years. When I got on station, he was 23 years in the job, and I've always wanted to be a firefighter. All I've ever wanted to do, read Report from Engine Company 82 at the tender age of 14, and was like, bang, that's me, I'm there. And so, I was really passionate, really energetic, really over the top, checking the truck 6 times in the morning before smoko. And here's this bloke, and I've met 23 years in the job, and he's bouncing off the walls harder than I am. So Pete always taught me to encourage passion and love of the job. If you find that in someone, harness it. Make sure that you encourage them to follow it and to keep the passion alive and to bring that to work every day. The next thing he taught me was to work to your learners. So meet their expectations. Again, we've heard today throughout the panel how as instructors we need to meet the needs of our learners. And if they've got challenges, we can work past them. We need to style ourselves on our learners so that we can transfer our information to them. And that's been such a big lesson for me. When I first started instructing, I completely ignored that. I was like, no, this is the information, you need to learn it. This is how I'm telling you, you need to learn it. Now I'm completely different. I ask the question, what's troubling you? You look a bit lost. How can I say this better? What aren't you understanding? I'm starting to ask the learners the questions rather than just give them the information. Pete's a big one. He's always on the lookout for ways to improve, and he encourages curiosity. Ask any fire service in the world, they'll tell you that they're the best one. But we all do things so differently. And so that creates like this real paradox. So always look at how other people are doing things. And the worst thing that you can find out is that you're doing it better. You could always learn something from everyone. So always be on the lookout for ways to improve, and always make sure that what you're doing is right or reasoned action. And lastly, Pete taught me never to discount any voice. Everyone brings something to the table. And the way he taught me this was, we were out teaching some new recruits pumping. And he said, we're not going to tell them how to do this one task. I want to watch them. And so he said, I need you to get that hose. I need you to take that hydrant, put it in. And they did it in a completely different way than what I've been taught to do, or how I do it and how he does it. And it was really efficient and really good. And he said to me, like I said, wow, I would never have expected that. And he said, well, that's because you and me are so indoctrinated in the fire service now, we can't think outside of it. But we get these new recruits in with life experiences that are different to us, or that have worked different jobs in different industries. And they can bring something to us and teach us new things. And it's just amazing. I'm picking up so many little things every single time I meet a new recruit. It's really good. So, yeah, Pete, thanks so much for everything. And, over to you, Debbie.